We knew about Sebring and were working on Sebring for months before we ever set foot in town.
Wow.
So we had, we had undercover agents were here.
Ben Napier seemed like the perfect TV husband, building furniture, restoring homes, and living the small-town dream on HGTV. But in 2022, his name appeared in court documents linked to a massive welfare fraud scandal. $77 million meant for poor families had vanished. When Ben's name surfaced, fans couldn't believe it. Was America's favorite carpenter hiding something dark? The truth behind those court papers would shock everyone who thought they knew him. Ben Napier was born on September 24, 1983, in Collins, Mississippi. His parents, Benny and Wayne, were both Methodist ministers. Faith was not just something they practiced on Sundays. It was a way of life. Their home was filled with sermons, songs, and a deep sense of community. Ben grew up with 3 brothers, Jesse, Tom, and Sam, and life in the Napier house was loud, loving, and always competitive. There were games in the yard, races to the dinner table, and constant battles over who could do things better. That rivalry built his work ethic and sense of independence. In his teenage years, Ben's world was shaken. His family moved to North Carolina when his parents were assigned to a new church. He had to leave everything familiar behind: new friends, new schools, and a new state. That experience stuck with him. He missed the feeling of home. He started to believe that home wasn't just a place. It was something you had to build with love, memory, and effort. That belief would guide him for the rest of his life. After high school, Ben returned to Mississippi. He enrolled at Jones County Junior College. It was a small campus surrounded by pine trees. But it gave him something big. It gave him direction. It gave him the space to figure out who he was. That's also where he picked up a few scraps of wood one day and decided to build something. It was nothing fancy, just a simple shelf. But it felt good. It felt right. That small act turned into a passion. He started building more things: desks, tables, chairs. Most of them were crooked and rough. But he didn't care. He was learning. Then he met Erin. She was the design editor of the college yearbook. He was a student leader on campus. She interviewed him. Within 6 days, they both knew. They were going to get married. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a crush. They saw something in each other that clicked. They called that week Love Week, and every year they still celebrate it like it's more important than their actual anniversary. First date on December 9th. Christmas lights on December 10th. Marriage plan by December 13th. That fast. They transferred together to Ole Miss. Ben studied history. Erin focused on art and design. While she was in class, Ben spent his time in the campus wood shop. He built things while she painted and printed. They were always creating. Ben's love for history started blending with his love for woodworking. He didn't just want to build things, he wanted to rebuild the past, restore the soul of old houses, honor what came before. While doing all that, Ben was also a student minister. He preached during the day. He built furniture at night. No one really knew how serious he was about woodworking. It was a quiet obsession, a second life, and it would become his future. In 2014, he left the church to follow this passion. Some people didn't understand. They thought he was giving up a calling, but Ben didn't see it that way. He believed building homes and restoring communities was also a kind of ministry. On November 22, 2008, Ben and Erin got married at Ole Miss. The chapel was packed. It was the coldest November 22nd ever recorded in Oxford, only 46 degrees that day. Erin wore a lace gown and a vintage cocktail dress. Ben's dad officiated. Their friends cried and laughed. They drove off in a cherry-red vintage Corvette. It felt like a movie, and it was only the beginning. Married life wasn't easy. Erin worked in graphic design. Ben worked in ministry. They lived in a small apartment and tried to figure out how to combine their dreams. Money was tight. Their jobs were different. Their hours were long. But they kept building, both their marriage and their future. They renovated a loft together with barely enough money. Ben Napier had always felt a deep connection to his small town of Laurel, Mississippi. In 2014, he shocked everyone when he resigned from his job as a youth minister at Laurel First United Methodist Church. People couldn't believe it. He came from a long line of ministers. Both of his parents served in the church. He was loved by everyone, especially the young people. But something inside him was changing. He wasn't leaving faith behind. He was just being pulled in a different direction. He wanted to build not just lives, but things he could hold in his hands. Ben teamed up with his friend Josh. They turned the basement of a 100-year-old downtown building into a wood shop. It was dark and gritty, with exposed pipes and crumbling bricks. The air smelled like sawdust and old dreams. They worked long nights in that space, figuring things out one plank at a time. They weren't just building furniture. They were building a new life. Every cut, every mistake, every laugh, it all mattered. This was the start of Scotsman Co. They started with small things. Ben had a special love for heirloom cutting boards and butcher blocks. These weren't just kitchen tools. They were beautiful, solid, made to last. He used American hardwoods, cherry, maple, walnut. Each board had a story. They were safer than plastic, too. The wood naturally sealed small cuts and killed bacteria. Customers loved them. Some called them heirlooms. These were objects that could be passed down. When their renovated cottage was featured in Southern Weddings magazine in June 2014, Ben and Erin Napier thought it was just a cute little article about newlyweds fixing up an old house. Nothing more. But that single moment set off a chain reaction that neither of them could have seen coming. The magazine showed off their 1925 craftsman-style home in Laurel, Mississippi, a town with fewer than 20,000 people. It was charming, personal, and full of Southern warmth. Then Erin's Instagram started blowing up. Suddenly, strangers across the country were falling in love with the couple's aesthetic. One of those strangers was an HGTV executive. She had been scrolling, looking for something new, something real. She liked Erin's post. That like turned into a conversation. That conversation turned into a pitch. And that pitch turned into a TV show that would change not only their lives, but the future of their town. Just over a year later, on January 24, 2016, Hometown premiered on HGTV. That Sunday night episode was filmed entirely in Laurel, with real families, real homes, and real emotion. Ben and Erin weren't actors. They weren't trying to be famous. They were just two people who loved old houses and believed in second chances. For homes, for towns, for people. Their hands were shaking when the cameras started rolling. They didn't know if anyone would care. But people did. Viewers across America connected with their sincerity, their warmth, and the way they made forgotten places feel important again. By the end of that first season, Hometown was a hit. Ratings were high, reviews were glowing, and Laurel was no longer a fading name on a map. Instead, it became a symbol of what could happen when love, craftsmanship, and storytelling came together. Tourists started arriving. New businesses opened. Locals who had once moved away started coming back. All because two people decided to stay. While most television hosts moved to New York or Los Angeles, Ben and Erin never left Laurel. That was a conscious choice. Instead of chasing more glamorous opportunities, they stayed rooted in the very place that inspired the show. they kept renovating homes in Laurel, many of them built between 1890 and 1940, often crumbling, sometimes forgotten. By 2024, they had renovated more than 100 homes, not for the cameras, but because every home they saved was another thread in the fabric of their town's comeback. The more success they had, the more HGTV asked for. Fans didn't just want more houses, they wanted more Napiers. So the spin-offs came fast. Hometown, Ben's workshop, launched in 2021, followed by Hometown Takeover, where they brought their vision to other small towns like Wetumpka, Alabama. These weren't tiny side projects. In Wetumpka, they helped renovate more than a dozen buildings, from homes to storefronts. That single series pulled in thousands of applications from towns hoping to be next. Everyone wanted a piece of what Ben and Erin had created. Back in Laurel, the economic ripple was massive. Shops, restaurants, and hotels filled with tourists and fans. Business owners credited Hometown with their survival. Even the local real estate market rebounded. It wasn't just about renovations anymore. It was about hope. In 2018, the couple released a memoir called Make Something Good Today. It wasn't a typical celebrity book. It was honest, sometimes painfully so. Erin shared her struggles with anxiety and self-doubt. Ben opened up about his fears, his faith, and how becoming a public figure tested their marriage. But woven through every chapter was a sense of gratitude. Erin had been keeping a daily journal for years before their rise to fame, and that habit helped them stay grounded when everything changed. The book revealed their deeper mission. Renovating homes was just one part of it. Their true passion was showing people how to find meaning in the everyday. They believed in community. They believed in old things made new. And they believed that even the smallest town could matter, as long as someone cared enough to fight for it. Ben Napier seemed to have it all: a hit HGTV show, a loving wife, and the kind of small-town charm that America fell in love with. But when their daughter Helen was born in January 2018, just as Hometown was reaching peak popularity, everything changed. What looked like a dream on screen quickly became a test of endurance. Newborn cries in the middle of the night turned into bleary-eyed mornings on set. Ben had to smile for millions while barely sleeping. At first, he tried to keep up, acting like he could handle it all. But fatherhood hit him harder than expected. Watching Helen grow so fast made him realize how much he was missing. That realization hit him in the gut and on the scale. Within the first year of her life, Ben lost 55 pounds. Not for TV, not for vanity, but because he wanted to live long enough to watch her grow up. He later said, "I want a long life so I can be there for Erin and Helen." That one thought changed everything. 3 years later, on May 28, 2021, their second daughter, May, arrived. It should have been all joy. But the truth was more complicated. Erin was pregnant while they were shooting Hometown Takeover, hopping between cities, juggling deadlines, toddlers, and pregnancy pains. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. They needed help. Lots of it. Family members stepped in. So did their TV crew. But nothing could fully prepare them for the chaos of raising 2 small children while carrying the weight of a growing television empire. Erin would later say, "It was the hardest thing we had ever done." And she meant it. Some days, a single cough from one of the kids could shut down filming for a week. That meant delayed episodes, budget problems, and even tougher calls behind the scenes. But they never complained. If a child was sick, work could wait. Their home life told its own story. Years before, they bought a crumbling Victorian house in Laurel, Mississippi for just $14,000. Most people saw a money pit. They saw a future. They didn't just renovate it for the cameras, they restored it to live in it Ben sanded the original pine trim by hand. They kept every little quirk of the century-old house alive. Even the parquet floor in the entryway still said, "Welcome," just like it did in 1900. But restoring history wasn't easy with babies crawling around and cameras filming daily. Their house became more than a project. It became a symbol. While they were fixing up other people's homes, they were quietly struggling to finish their own. In 2022, fans of the HGTV show Hometown were shocked. Ben Napier, the friendly, bearded carpenter known for building furniture and restoring old houses, was suddenly linked to a massive welfare fraud scandal in Mississippi. The headlines didn't seem real. Ben, the guy who joked about lumber and loved small-town life, was suddenly being mentioned alongside NFL legend Brett Favre and former Governor Phil Bryant. And this wasn't some small-time case. It involved $77 million meant for poor families. The story had been brewing for years, but everything exploded in May 2022. Investigative reporters found old text messages from as far back as 2017. These messages showed powerful people moving public money behind the scenes. One of the biggest shocks was how casual it all looked. Brett Favre was texting about building a volleyball stadium at the University of Southern Mississippi. His daughter played there. He wanted the money to come from the TANF program, which was supposed to help needy families with food, shelter, and basic living. Some of these texts included Ben Napier's name. That alone was enough to make headlines. In one conversation, Governor Bryant agreed to talk to Ben about helping with wooden lockers for the stadium. It sounded harmless, just a favor, maybe. But because it was part of a secret chain of messages about possibly illegal money transfers, even that tiny connection made people stop and stare. From 2016 to 2019, about $77 million were taken from the state's poorest citizens and redirected to projects for the rich and powerful. Instead of going to struggling families, the money went into sports arenas, luxury travel, biotech startups, and even payments for speeches that never happened. Brett Favre was paid more than $1 million for speaking gigs he never attended. $5 million more were used to build the volleyball arena. And while Favre and others worked behind the scenes to keep everything quiet, they even discussed using prisoners to build parts of the facility to save money. By the time Ben Napier's name showed up in the leaked court documents, the public was already furious. In one 2018 text, Brett Favre told Governor Bryant that the project still needed lockers. Bryant replied he'd get on it. Not long after, he apparently contacted Ben. Court records later said Ben was approached to assist with locker construction. That vague wording raised a lot of eyebrows. Was he building the lockers himself? Was he part of the scheme? The internet lit up. People who had never missed an episode of Hometown were now questioning everything. Was Ben involved? Did he take money? Did he know what was really happening? But just as the story was catching fire, Ben's wife Erin jumped in to stop it. She didn't wait. As soon as journalist Anna Wolf tweeted that Ben had been named in court filings, Erin fired back. She said Ben didn't build any lockers. He didn't take any money. The governor simply asked if he knew a good cabinet maker. Ben gave him a name. That was it. No deals, no payments, no stadium, just a recommendation. Erin's message was sharp. She accused the reporter of jumping the gun. She reminded everyone how easy it is to ruin someone's name with half the facts. And surprisingly, it worked. Anna Wolf responded and clarified that Ben hadn't done anything wrong. He had only pointed them to someone else. There was no evidence of him being involved in fraud, building projects, or anything shady. Still, for many fans, the damage was already done. Once your name is linked to something as big as $77 million in stolen welfare funds, it's hard to walk away without a stain. even if you're innocent. Ben Napier never saw it coming. The pain started slowly, just a dull ache in his shoulder. What began as soreness turned into sharp shooting pain whenever he moved his left arm. Lifting a shirt, holding his daughters, even just reaching for a mug, it all became unbearable. The culprit was a bone spur, one that had quietly dug itself deep into his shoulder joint after years of physical work on hometown. He tried to push through, but every day felt harder. Nights were the worst. He couldn't sleep, couldn't get comfortable, and the pain just wouldn't let up. For a man built on strength and self-reliance, this was torture. Erin, his wife, noticed the toll it took. She watched as he struggled to do simple things, needing help in ways he never had before. The injury didn't just affect Ben, it changed their whole family rhythm. On March 3, 2023, Ben finally made the call. He went in for arthroscopic surgery to fix the rotator cuff and remove the bone spur. It wasn't a simple fix. Years of wear and tear made the procedure more complicated than doctors had hoped. They warned him the surgery would help, but recovery wouldn't be easy. When Ben woke up, his arm was in a sling and would stay that way for 6 weeks. He couldn't work, couldn't lift, couldn't do what made him who he was. He later joked about giving a speech while high on pain meds. He barely remembered it. Erin posted videos and updates as their daughters left sweet notes for their recovering dad. But behind the smiles, Ben knew the road ahead would be tough. The sling stayed on for 6 weeks. Then came 7 more weeks of physical therapy. Every session was brutal. His brother-in-law, Clark, a trained physical therapist, led the rehab. But even with family by his side, Ben felt helpless. Showering, eating, getting dressed. All had to be done with one hand. He hated needing help. He hated not being able to jump in during filming. Erin could see the frustration. Ben feared rushing the recovery would only lead to a permanent injury. So he held back. Let others do the lifting. Let his pride take a back seat. It was humbling, but it was working. Filming Season 8 of Hometown during this time meant everything had to change. Tools were swapped out for lighter ones. Heavy lifting was done by others. Scenes were blocked to keep Ben safe. Viewers noticed he wasn't hauling lumber or climbing ladders anymore. The show didn't talk much about it, but fans who paid attention saw the shift. Behind the scenes, the entire production slowed down so Ben could heal. It wasn't the season they'd planned, but it became one that showed real strength in a different way. As his body recovered, Ben made another big decision. He converted a barn on his Mississippi property into a personal gym. It was more than just a workout space. It was filled with memories and meaning. He installed reclaimed glass and wood from old family homes. He wanted this space to remind him of who he was and who he wanted to become. Late at night, he worked on it, replacing beams, insulating walls, cleaning out years of dust. Every brick, every nail was part of his comeback. The barn became a symbol of change, a place to rebuild his body and his life. But this time, it wasn't about lifting heavy or looking big. Ben turned to yoga, something he once never imagined doing. It helped his flexibility, his balance, his mind. He also began intermittent fasting, only eating during strict time windows. Slowly, his body adapted. He lost fat, gained energy. His blood pressure dropped. But the most intense part? Ice baths. Plunging into freezing water after workouts wasn't just shocking, it was healing. He said it reset his nervous system and cleared his mind. The changes were working. At his heaviest, Ben had weighed more than 335 pounds. His blood pressure was dangerously high. Doctors wanted to put him on medication. But by March 2025, after 3 years of discipline, He had lost 95 pounds. He looked like a different person. Fans could hardly recognize him. What shocked people most wasn't the before and after photos. It was how fast it all happened. His injury in 2023 pushed him into a new lifestyle. And even when he lost muscle from not lifting, the fat dropped even faster. In July 2025, something strange started happening online. People began sharing shocking news about celebrity divorces. Stories that seemed real, complete with quotes, photos, and even fake headlines from trusted news sites. But none of it was true. These weren't just rumors spread by bored fans. They were created by artificial intelligence. And one of the biggest targets? Ben and Erin Napier, the couple loved by millions for their warm, down-to-earth show on HGTV. Suddenly, their names were everywhere. Facebook posts said they were splitting up. TikTok videos claimed they had been faking it for years. Instagram comments asked what went wrong. The twist? None of it came from real reporters or insiders. It was all built by AI, designed to look and sound like the real thing. The words sounded like something Ben or Erin might actually say. The images looked convincing, but they were completely fake. Then came something even weirder. A woman in Greece claimed she caught her husband cheating because of an AI fortune teller that read her coffee grounds. That bizarre case only added fuel to the fire. Suddenly, people everywhere were wondering, can AI really know the truth? Or is it just getting better at lying? Things got so bad for the Napiers that Erin had to speak out. On July 8th, she posted a message on Instagram that left no room for confusion. "Can't believe I even have to say this, but no," she wrote. "The clickbait articles that we are splitting up are not real, y'all. They are AI-generated and completely made up." Her words were honest and sharp, and they hit hard. While all this was going on, Ben and Erin had something more important to celebrate: 17 years of marriage. Instead of hiding or staying quiet, they used their anniversary to show the world what love looks like. They posted old pictures. They shared sweet messages. They reminded people that their story wasn't built on rumors. It was built on real time together. That anniversary meant more than just another year. In a time when social media is filled with drama, they showed what stability looks like. Other couples, like Jessica Alba and Cash Warren, had also faced strange rumors recently. But just like the Napiers, they stayed strong and showed their fans what real family moments look like. Still, the attacks didn't stop. Around the same time, people started saying that Ben had suffered a heart attack. This wasn't true. The rumor came from a blog post Erin wrote in 2014 about someone else entirely. But over time, the post got twisted. The internet took a quiet memory and turned it into a dramatic lie. The truth was easy to check, but the internet doesn't always care about facts. Clickbait sites repeated the same story again and again. People saw the headline, assumed it was true, and shared it. It's how misinformation grows. Small changes, repeated often, until no one remembers where it started. And this isn't rare. Experts say over 28,000 women die of heart attacks every year in the UK. But when old posts are reused and misquoted, it confuses people. Some may even miss real warning signs because they're so used to seeing fake ones. That's the hidden danger. Lies don't just hurt reputations, they can cost lives. Then there was the joke. In April 2025, Ben made a funny comment about quitting his job to restore vintage cars. It sounded like an April Fool's joke, but the internet didn't laugh. Instead, people started saying he was having a midlife crisis, that he was broke, that he and Erin were done.